Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the stimulus proposals that are out there. I'm going to go over in detail the Emergency Money for the People Act, and then additionally I'm going to go over 5 additional proposals that have been discussed. I'm going to be looking at my notes today to make sure I don't miss anything and make sure that you guys are up to date on everything that's going on right now. So why am I going to be talking about a second stimulus check if a lot of people still haven't received their first stimulus check? Well, one of the biggest problems with the first stimulus check is a lot of people on Social Security, disability, and SSI have not received their checks because of various issues with direct deposit not being set up or just delays in the checks going out to them. The Emergency Money for the People Act has been discussed and was proposed by Tim Ryan and Ro Khanna a week or so ago. And one of the things they were trying to fix is to get the money to people more quickly. And for those people that weren't receiving money in the first stimulus checks from the CARES Act, they were going to be included in this second round of stimulus. So nearly 90 million people have received their stimulus checks so far, but that means that about 60 million people still haven't received their stimulus checks, and that's as of a few days ago. So President Trump and both parties have discussed other stimulus packages and other stimulus proposals to help during this economic crisis. So many people are out of work. So many people have lost their incomes for various reasons. Small businesses are struggling because people can't go out to businesses and spend money. So there's a lot of problems going all around. And I'm going to be discussing in this video specifically the Emergency Money for the People Act, but as well 5 other proposals. So stick around for the entire video to make sure you hear all of the proposals that I'm going to be talking about. And then I'm going to give my thoughts quickly on most of these proposals and what I think about them. If you haven't been to my channel before, my name is Justin, and on my channel I discuss financial topics. Recently I've been doing stimulus updates to keep people up to date because a lot of people are wondering what's in the pipeline and what's going on and what's to come. So I'm going to continue to be giving stimulus updates and updates to those that have received their checks, those that haven't received checks, and also keeping up to date on any new proposals that are coming down the line. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on all of the latest, and I can keep you informed on everything that may be coming and any news that's coming out regarding new stimulus packages and checks. In addition to that, make sure you hit the like button on this video so that I can reach more people. There's a lot of important information that I'm going to be sharing and I continue to share. And if you hit the like button, then that tells YouTube to send this video to more people and I can reach more people, and I would really appreciate it if you do that. So one thing that I think I need to be very clear on, and I think you need to understand, is these things I'm going to be talking about today are all proposals. They're either bills that have been proposed or they're just things that have been discussed in Congress and by President Trump, by Joe Biden, and some others. So at this point, they're just proposals. They haven't happened. They don't have a final date of when it's actually going to happen. And some of them may never happen. But what I'm going to talk about are specifically proposals that have been made already and that have actually been set out as a bill to be discussed and voted on. But all of these that I'm discussing are proposals today. So the first one, I think this is probably the most popular one that most people are wondering about, and that's the Emergency Money for the People Act. And this is basically quickly is the $2,000 per month payment that probably a lot of you have already heard about. $2,000 a month for 6 months, and then an additional 12 months depending on the unemployment numbers. So this Emergency Money for the People Act was proposed a couple weeks ago because the representatives that proposed it, Tim Ryan and Ro Khanna, both thought that $1,200 didn't go very far for people that have lost their jobs. There have been 26 million people that have lost their jobs over the past few weeks, and 26 million plus unemployed right now, that if you have a $1,200 one-time check, that's not going to get you very far if you just lost your job. And a one-time payment isn't going to even cover rent for the average American. The average rent in America is $1,500 per month. So a one-time check's not even going to cover a month's rent for a lot of people. So these two representatives proposed the Emergency Money for the People Act to try and get more money out to people that are struggling and that need the assistance. So a few details about this. This $2,000 a month that has been proposed. Once again, this is just a proposal. $2,000 a month would not count as taxable income. So if you're receiving other government benefits that are based off of income and you have to be below a certain income threshold, this bill and this proposal would not, and if you were a recipient of the $2,000 per month, that would not count against your income, or that would not count towards your income. So if you're receiving government assistance based on your low income, you would continue to receive it under this plan. So I went over why it's needed, and it's because $1,200 doesn't go very far for a lot of people, and for most people $1,200 doesn't even cover a month's rent. So who would qualify under the Emergency Money for the People Act? Well, there's a few stipulations, but it's a lot wider reaching than the CARES Act or the $1,200 stimulus package that many people have already received, and that those that are going to receive it should be receiving it soon. So for the Emergency Money for the People's Act, it includes anybody over the age of 16. And the big difference between this and the CARES Act is it's anyone over 16, even if they're claimed as a dependent on their parents' taxes. So if you're 16, 17 years old and you're on your parents' taxes, you're still living at home, you would still receive this $2,000 a month payment for 6 months if this bill were to pass. In addition to that, any adults on disability that are claimed as a dependent by somebody else, they would be included in this bill as well, and they would receive $2,000 a month for 6 months as well. For those couples filing jointly, they would receive $4,000 a month, and the limits on income for this are $130,000 for the individual and $260,000 for a married couple. So, and it's based on adjusted gross income. So after taxes, after deductions, everything else, if you're below $130,000 in adjusted gross income, then you would receive $2,000 per month for 6 months. And if a married couple is below $260,000 per year, then they would receive $4,000 per month for 6 months. If after the 6 months, then unemployment levels were still not back to pre-pandemic and crisis levels, then this would be extended for another 6 months. So upwards of 12 months of $2,000 payments per month, and then $4,000 payments per month for married couples. Additionally, after the $130,000 threshold for individuals and $260,000 threshold for married couples, the payments begin to phase out. For every $1,000 over that amount, they phase out by $50 per month. So up to $170,000, people would receive some amount under this plan, and then at $170,000 for individuals or $340,000 for a married couple, they would no longer receive any benefit under this plan. It would go to zero. Another difference between this and the CARES Act is if you recently lost your job, but you were making over $130,000 in 2018 and 2019, you would receive this benefit. So if you had been over the threshold, but then you lost your job recently, then you would be able to claim this $2,000 per month payment. If you fell below that threshold, or let's say your income went down and you went below that threshold, you would need to submit pay stubs, I believe it's 2 pay periods, to prove that you are now below that $130,000 threshold. And that's different than the CARES Act. The CARES Act went off of the 2018 and 2019 tax returns. So as I've gone over these, how much would these payments be? They would be $2,000 per month for individuals, $4,000 per month for married couples, and in addition to that, anyone claiming dependents would receive $500 per month per dependent, up to 3 dependents. So a family, a married couple with 3 kids would receive $5,500 per month under this plan. And that would continue for 6 months. And like I said, if the unemployment numbers were still not below pre-crisis levels, then that would continue for another 6 months, for a total of 12 months. One other thing that they have done is they proposed that this would be paid out by mobile apps instead of just direct deposit or checks being sent out. People would sign up for and put in their information for Venmo or PayPal or Zelle or other mobile payment apps, and their thought is that they could pay the money more quickly than it's been paid out right now. One of the biggest problems with the CARES Act and the $1,200 stimulus payments is a lot of people haven't been receiving them quickly. And a lot of times it's those that need it the most. The SSI, SSDI, VA recipient, benefit recipients have been the ones that have been receiving these payments last. And so under this Emergency Money for the People Act proposal, more people would receive their checks theoretically faster, or receive their money faster, because they would receive it through a mobile payment app that they could set up for payment. So let me remind you, I've said this a few times, but I want to make it very clear. The Emergency Money for the People's Act it's just a proposal. It hasn't been voted on. It hasn't really been discussed. It was proposed in the House of Representatives, but it still has a long way to go before it become a law. So I don't want to say don't get your hopes up, but just remember that this is just a proposal. And I have 5 other proposals that I'm going to talk about right now. And these are, either bills, or they've just other stimulus proposals, or proposals that are meant to help people and states. So the first one, I'm just going to make sure, I'm going to look at my notes during this too to make sure that I'm covering them properly. The first one, President Trump and Nancy Pelosi have both talked about infrastructure payments or infrastructure improvements. And that could include bridges, tunnels, roads, other projects that where they're government jobs, but they would hire people that are out of work and people that need jobs, but also the benefit is we would fix roads, fix tunnels, bridges, and anything else that might need some help anyway. So it's kind of a win-win is what they're proposing. And I think this may be the first time President Trump and Nancy Pelosi have ever agreed on something. And that's, that there's some infrastructure that needs upgrading. And so that's a proposal that they've had to get people back to work by providing them with work that would also improve roads and bridges and tunnels and other infrastructure in states and other federal roads. So the second one package or proposal to help out with this. The trouble is a lot of governors of states all the way from California to New York have asked, and all, everywhere in between, have asked for additional federal funds. And a lot of them are asking for federal funds to help with healthcare and other costs that they're incurring right now because of the lockdown and because of all of the problems that are going on right now. So, many governors have asked for federal help at this time. And so that would infuse money into the states so that the states, wouldn't have to go bankrupt or just run short on the services they're providing for the people living in their states. So the third proposal that I have is one that was proposed by Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri, and he called for payroll tax cuts for small businesses to hire back the employees that were let go or furloughed during this time because of shutdowns. So his theory is that and this one is called the Getting America Back to Work Act. And the whole idea behind this one is to get businesses to hire back the same people that they just laid off. So that in theory, we could get a lot of those 26 million people that are unemployed back to their same jobs, and also that those small businesses could open back up because their costs would be a lot lower because they wouldn't have to pay payroll taxes. So in this one would refund up to 80% of payroll costs for all companies affected by this shutdown. And this payroll tax credit would apply to companies that rehired people, like I said, that had been previously laid off. And I think that's kind of a best case scenario, is getting people back to work in the same jobs that they left before this pandemic. Everyone would like to get back to the same levels that we were at in January. I mean, we were having some of the best economic times we have had in years. And if we can theoretically get people back to those same jobs, then the economy would also pick back up, hopefully a lot more quickly. The fourth proposal is the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act. And this was proposed, and it would offer full forgiveness of rent and mortgage payments for a year for any primary residents or for those renting. And the thing that's interesting about this one is it doesn't matter how much the mortgage is. So you could have an $80,000 home and a mortgage on that $80,000 mobile home, or you could have a $10 million mansion. As long as it's your primary residence, the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act would forgive or get rid of your mortgage or rent for an entire year. And so, some of the things that are interesting about this, like I was saying, is if you have a $10 million home and it's your primary residence, this would forgive all of your mortgage for an entire year. And the one thing that I think that's not so great about this is for those that have paid off their mortgage and have lived responsibly and have, stayed out of debt completely or paid off their mortgage quickly, this would not benefit them at all. So it seems like it's a little bit of a disincentive to those that have been frugal and fiscally responsible in paying down their mortgage, paying off their mortgage, and benefiting those that have mortgages and have kept that debt. So that's an interesting one, and the federal government would take on the cost of all of those loans. This wouldn't be a forbearance, or it wouldn't be like kind of put your payments on hold. This would actually be a forgiveness where you would never have to pay those payments again, and the federal government would assume the cost of that entire plan. So that one would cost trillions of dollars, and it would benefit those that have mortgages and those that are paying rent. If you didn't have a mortgage and you weren't paying rent, then that one would not benefit you at all. The fifth proposal is one that's not new, and it's not one specific bill or proposal, but it's student loan forgiveness. And it's something that a lot of Democrats in the House and in the Senate and former Vice President Joe Biden have also talked about, and Bernie Sanders has talked about, and that's student loan debt forgiveness. That's basically if you have a student loan, that it would just be wiped away. If you owed, $10,000 in student loans or $500,000 in student loans, it wouldn't matter. It would just be given away. So whether you went to a community college and saved up and scrimped and left community college with $2,000 in student loan debt or whatever it may be, or whether you went to Harvard and did whatever and had $500,000 in student loans, the student loan forgiveness program would forgive that loan and you wouldn't have to pay it anymore. This is a very popular one, of course, among college kids and recent graduates because they, have a lot of debt, a lot of them. And the problem I see with this one is for those, once again, that were really careful and lived really frugally while in college and didn't incur a lot of debt. It's obviously not possible for a lot of people to do that. But if you did that and you worked and you paid for your own college and everything else, then you would receive no benefit from any of that. But like I said, this is a very popular one, and a lot of people really like that idea because a lot of people have a lot of student loan debt. So what do I think about some of these proposals, and what do I think about the Emergency Money for the People Act? First off, the Emergency Money for the People Act, I can understand what they're trying to do. $1,200 does not go very far for people that are unemployed or people that are out of work. Like I said, it doesn't cover even a month's rent for people. However, it also would pay a whole lot of money to people that don't need it and that haven't lost their jobs. For a family of 5, it would pay $5,500 a month. And if that's a person that hadn't lost their job, then they wouldn't need that money. And the problem with that is spending money should be done carefully. I realize that the government right now has shut, basically everything down, or most everything down, and there are a lot of people that are hurting. But spending money just to kind of throw it out there and say, here, no matter who you are, as long as you're below this income threshold, to take this money, whether you've lost your job or not, I think is probably not wise. There are a lot of people that are struggling and need some sort of assistance, and I think there will be another stimulus package to come out. And I think there probably will be more stimulus checks. President Trump's talked about it. A lot of other people in Congress have talked about how there needs to be another stimulus. Whether that's exactly how the Emergency Money for the People Act is written, I think probably not. That one is it's going to be very expensive to do what they've said, and in addition, there's a few issues with it. I have the cost. The cost would be about $448 billion every single month, and $2.6 trillion over the course of 6 months, or $5.2 trillion if that were extended for the full year. That's a huge amount to take on, and I think there's a lot of people that would be receiving money that probably wouldn't even need it. So those are kind of the issues I have with the Emergency Money for the People Act, but I do think that there probably is some stimulus that needs to happen. There's something else that needs to happen because there are so many people out of work. There is the benefit of an extra $600 per month, $600 per week under the CARES Act for those that are unemployed. They can receive an additional $600 per month, $600 per week if they lost their job, in addition to what their current state's unemployment is. And those unemployment benefits can be extended for an additional 13 weeks, I believe it is. So on the other proposals, the infrastructure upgrades, I don't love the idea of just doing work to do work and putting people to work. If there are really jobs that need to be done at the federal level or at the state level, then yes, obviously, I think they need to be wise with how they're spending the money, though. They shouldn't just throw money at a problem if there isn't a problem there. With the federal funds to states, I think it's the same thing. I think if they're handing money to states, I think it needs to be used for a specific purpose and to directly affect and help those that are most affected by this. If they aren't affected by this and they haven't if they haven't lost their job or they haven't had any sort of economic problem, why should we be giving them extra money? So payroll tax cuts, I think, would be helpful to many small businesses. And it would be great if many businesses could hire back the same people that they lost. And if that were written correctly, then they could receive that money and get hired back the same people that they had laid off before. And I think that's probably a pretty good idea. And if they could actually make it work and do it quickly, then I think that would be helpful. The Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act, I talked a little bit about the issues I have with that. It punishes individuals that have paid off their mortgage, and also really benefits those that have huge mortgage payments and large mortgages. Excuse me. And I think while it's a decent idea to help people, those that haven't had any financial problems right now, we shouldn't be helping those that haven't had any sort of financial difficulty during this time. And I think that would probably spend a lot of money for people that didn't really even need assistance at this time. And I don't think that that's something we should be doing. The student loan forgiveness, I also think that this one is a bit of a problem because these people took out these loans knowing full well that they were going to have to repay them. If you have a student loan forgiveness program, then people are just going to spend. If you're giving free money to people, people are just going to spend and not necessarily be judicious with how they're spending their money. And it indirectly, well, it hurts those that were very careful in how they spent their money and saved and worked multiple jobs to pay their way through college and not take out any loans. It's basically punishing those that lived that way instead of taking out a loan. So those are all the latest proposals and some of the other proposals that have come out. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you want to stay up to date on the latest stimulus proposals and packages that are coming out and will be coming out, be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure that you hit that like button so that I can reach more people, and that really helps us out as creators here, and we really appreciate it. If you can hit that like button, I would appreciate it. And make sure you stay safe, stay healthy, but I am out of here for now.